And then David.
Hey, Carl, Jeff at RacingToday.com. Been a few weeks now since you've had Chad Norris on board as the crew chief. How are things going? Communication, how would you assess it overall?
Chad and I have been doing really well together. He has, he's really put himself in a huge leadership position here on the team. He does a great job of working really hard, of speaking with everyone, using every part of the team that we have. Seems like he uses all the resources very well. I talked to Bob a little bit this week. We talked about how he's helping Chad, and I think the whole thing is working very well. We've run very well. We've had great qualifying efforts, great races. Chad seems to be making really good calls up on the box. Jack has been helping us a lot, sitting up there on the box, putting a lot of effort into our team, and I feel like we've got as good a situation as we could have for the position we're in.
Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead, Greg.
MikeHenryspeed.com. Carl, considering your relatively precarious situation now, is there any question that if you're in second place on the last lap, you'll use the bump and run, or do you see that as still a reliable weapon here?
You never know what's going to happen until the race is played out, and definitely I think Greg's got enough wins. If he were in front of me on the last lap, I'd go ahead and move him out of the way, but. No, but you never really know. You could say that stuff, and you can have a plan, but really it comes down to how the race is going. But we're in a position right now where our 99 Fastenal team, we have to get that win, and I'd say I'd probably hang out there a little more than normal to get that win.
Let's go to David, and then we'll also then hear from Greg Biffle. But go ahead, David.
Yeah, David Newton for ESPN.com. I'll ask Carl and Greg. You can answer the same thing. You mentioned. He's asking, would you bump and run somebody? But do you have to bump and run somebody? And when we asked Kyle Busch earlier today about what he thought of the track, he said it's terrible. And I guess this is a big week for them after they've grounded to try to figure out if this is going to be the kind of racing they want.
I can't really tell until we get out there and race. I haven't raced on the track yet, so I just don't know. You won 2 night races here. I don't know how many races have you won here.
I've never won here.
I didn't know that. I wasn't trying to ask that to be a jerk.
But I was going to comment on Kyle. He did also win the first COT race here and said the car was terrible. Their car sucks, or whatever he did say.
He actually used another word. But
yeah,
that's okay.
Well, anyway, I'm going to stick with that for now.
What word was it? Oh, okay.
Well, okay.
You just never know. I mean, I don't have an opinion on the track yet. I know they're working their hardest to make it. I mean, heck, they changed the track because everyone wanted it to be 2 or 3 grooves, and then they changed it back. I mean, I think that the Smith family. I see Marcus sit right here. He's really paying attention to what I'm saying right now.
Yeah, he is.
I give them a lot of credit for doing the very best they can. I mean, this is one of the coolest racetracks in the world, and I think they've done everything they can to make sure we have the best show that we can have, and it'll be an exciting race one way or another.
We'll also now hear from Greg Biffle. Greg's our points leader based upon last week's win at Michigan, his second win of the season, and he's joined his teammate Carl Edwards in here. And Greg, just talk about maybe the coming off that win and looking for your first win here at the world's fastest half mile.
Well, I mean, last week couldn't have went any better than it did, obviously, but this week we could ask for a little bit more. Our car's, not really where we want it to be. When I go out and do race trim, it seems like I end up about 16th on a fast lap. I'm a little better than that on the lap tracker, but just lacking a little bit of grip overall. So I think, like Carl says, we don't know until we get into this race. My cars can drive, I'm pretty good up the racetrack and on the bottom, which I feel like I'm better on the bottom than I had been in the past year. So that may pay dividends during the race on Sunday, but a little nervous about qualifying here. I got to get a really good lap, and as times are so tight, of course, that's going to make a big difference. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Okay, we'll open up questions now for both Greg and Carl. Questions. Let's go to Paul right here, please, if we can. And then I know Marty had one. Marty Smith had one. Sorry. Go Paul and then Marty.
Paul Woody, Richmond Times-Dispatch. This is for Carl. Carl, you are unfailingly optimistic about your car, and it seems always to be running well in practice and everything. And then the races don't go as well. I wondered how frustrating that is for you, particularly after last season, and if you, what things you're pinpointing? Is it bad luck? Is it just racing?
Well, I could sit here and we could go through every race and how they went, and I don't know if you want to do that or not, but a lot of the races have been bad luck. We've got caught up in wrecks, or we had trouble at Indy when I thought we had a pretty decent car. A lot of times it's been bad luck. We haven't run as well as we need to run, but that's the only way I know how to be as an optimist. That's the only reason I'm sitting here in this suit driving for Jack Roush, is because you always got to go out there and give it your best. You've got to do everything you can, and yeah, at the end of the day, if you don't get the result you want, that's very frustrating. But I don't look back. I try to look forward and say, hey, how are we going to go get this pole? How are we going to win this race? And next week we do the same thing, regardless of how this week went. But I feel like last year, as well as things went, as great as we did, that a lot of things went our way. A lot of things went really well. And this year, if I went back and picked 2 or 3 races that we had terrible luck at, and if it would have gone the other way, we'd be solidly in the chase right now and wouldn't really be worried about this. I still think we've got to run better. I think whether I make the chase or not, our whole team, we've got to be better so that one of us can win this championship. And but it's not much. We need to be just a couple % better, and we'll be great.
Let's go over here to Marty Smith.
Marty Smith, ESPN. This is for both of you guys. So it looks like Matt's going to make chase, right? As his teammates, knowing that he's walking out the door at the end of the year, will you be as committed to helping him have an opportunity to win a championship as you would have been if you knew he was coming back?
Well, I think you have to be a person of integrity for Roush Fenway, and how much we hate that Matt's leaving, and we hate to, share all the information we share with him every week. The right thing to do and the contractual thing to do is share the information with him and help him, best we can, although both of us probably are going to be racing him for that championship as well. So at the same time, we're going to do all we can to win it ourselves. So I think that's really how you have to handle it.
I think it's interesting you asked that. Well, Greg and I are sitting up here together because last year at Talladega, Greg helped me a ton. He sacrificed his race for me and our team, and I learned a lot about, Greg and our team and how well we could work together. And I think all of us are committed to get a championship for Ford and for Roush Fenway. Even if we're all 3 in the chase, if one of us has a better shot at the end, we will all share as much as we can with that person and try to, whether it's Matt or not. I think we're all a team. I don't think personally of Matt. I don't think of him as leaving yet. It doesn't seem real. I know he is, but I still think of him as a teammate, and I've talked to him about it one-on-one about how he feels, and he said that he's not paying attention to that new team that he's going to. He's really focused here, and when the season's over, then he'll go and work on that, and I believe him.
Joe Menzer. Raise your hand, Joe.
Joe Menzer, NASCAR.com. So, Greg, do you agree with Carl? You won't really know how much the track is different until the race. And did you guys pay special attention to maybe what happened in the truck race, or will you pay more attention to what's going to happen tonight in the nationwide race because of that?
Yeah, I think the nationwide race will probably teach us more than the truck race will, because the truck race is the very first, cars that put rubber down. And now nationwide will have that opportunity to push that envelope a little bit. And like Carl said, I agree with him, and I was just thinking about it in the truck. I didn't really get up there against the wall or in that third groove. I never drove up there in practice anyway. I used that during the race, when you had to, or, when you went up there and kind of searched around for grip. I wasn't always the first one up there. So when it looked like it was working for other people, that's when I would explore. So, that lane being gone will affect probably, the outcome or the race, but or passing or whatnot. So we'll just have to wait and see exactly what it does.
Other questions? Right here, Alex.
Thank you. Alex Good, ESPN. Hey, guys. Just wanted to ask you both, we've seen here at Bristol sort of the last few years, it seems like drivers sort of get on a run. There was a run where Kyle Busch won a bunch of races in a row. Brad Kay's won the last, couple now here. And was just going to get both of your perspective on what makes a great Bristol driver and what helps you get on that kind of run where you're strong here for a while.
You've won here twice.
We won a couple night races in a row here, and it seemed like to me, it seems that the track doesn't change much over time, and the same setups kind of work. And when you figure something out and a driving style that works and a setup that works, you can use it race after race. And not a lot of tracks are like that. The speeds are relatively low enough here that little changes in the body and aero things don't make a big difference. So if somebody finds something, they can hang on to it a little longer.
David?
Yeah, David Newton, ESPN.com again. Are you two kind of an example of how fickle this sport is? I mean, a year ago, Greg, you were the one where Carl is now wanting to get better and improve your team, and Carl, you were kind of the one in charge. And it just sort of flip-flopped now. It's like so fine of a difference in what it is between being where you are now and where you are now.
I don't know. I've seen that. I've seen that so much, and I haven't been around as long as Mark Martin or those guys, but I'll tell you what, it's amazing. You sit there and wonder, what are we missing? We're off a little bit. We're not quite as competitive. And last year it was worse than ever for me because Matt was winning races and Carl was winning races and competing, and we just couldn't quite, get there. And I'm convinced a lot of it is, the chemistry within the team and just attention to detail, and a lot has to ride on the crew chief's shoulders too, of making sure he's staying up with the little, just the small stuff, the small items that change throughout. And, like last week in Michigan, I'll be perfectly honest with you, on Friday, I was wanting to get my backup car out. I'm asking them, what car do we have as, second car in the truck? Because I can't drive this thing. They went back, looked at the notes and looked at the notebook and looked at the springs. We looked at what Matt was doing because Matt was pretty good. And we came back and said, yeah, we don't think this is what we need. We went back to where we raced it the last race more in that direction. Saturday was perfect. So I would have run 25th last week, but instead we got it right, overnight. So it's not that much between, front and back or competitive and just being off a tiny, tiny bit. And this sport's so competitive. The amount is almost unmeasurable between being able to win and running 5th, 12th.
Monty?
Monty Dutton, Jackson Gazette. I'm sure both of you like the racing here fine, and for what it's worth, I do too. But doesn't it seem odd that we're on a stretch here where you've had just an unbelievable race at Pocono, then an unbelievable race at Watkins Glen, and then an unbelievable race at Michigan. And normally, people come to Bristol looking for a lift from Bristol, and now everyone's looking for a lift at Bristol. I mean, how can you come to Bristol after those? I mean, I'm just saying is that the perception is that people are coming in here and they're saying, boy, I hope everything's back the way it used to be. And does it strike you as odd to have people feel that way?
I don't know. I don't think either one of us have the same perspective that you guys do or the fans do. I mean, we sit in those, we sit in that race car. I sit in my race car. And I think a lot of these races are pretty darn good races. I mean, I'm driving my guts out, and but I think you look at what you're saying a couple different ways. It could be a reflection of Bristol and this type of racing we've had here lately, or it could be a reflection of how great the racing's been at other places. I think that the fans, for the first part of the season, we talked a lot about how there weren't any cautions, there weren't any wrecks, things were starting to get a little, bland, and then all of a sudden, it seems like things have been really exciting. And it feels to me, I don't know how Greg feels, but it feels to me like we've had enough pretty straightforward races here at Bristol that some crazy stuff could happen. It just has that feeling. It feels like there's a lot of people reaching for wins and trying to fight for the wild card position. There's a lot of guys with nothing to lose, and it's still Bristol. I mean, it's still a half mile you're hauling the mail.